Hey guys, so it is finally time for our recap of November, October's hits and misses. I have a few products here that I do want to talk about with you guys for this past month that I've been trying. So we are going to get jumping right into it. I do have a lot of skincare and I do have some makeup as well. So if you guys want to see what I have for hits and misses, then let's get into it. If you guys are strictly just wanting to see anything about makeup, then I will go ahead and put a timestamp right here for you guys so you guys can jump ahead. We're going to start off with skincare. I have two products from Good Molecules that I'm testing out. I'm testing out their Instant Cleansing Balm right now and their Niacinamide, I think is how you say it, one way or another. I always get that one confused. I can never say it correctly. I definitely have really been enjoying both products. This is one that I would definitely recommend purchasing. It is such a good product and it really does a good job at melting away waterproof makeup, eye makeup, any leftover residue from glue if you wear fake lashes. It does a really good job. And when you wash your face, you don't feel like there's this greasy film on your face. And then I go in with the cleanser and wash my face, and I feel like the second time I go in with my cleanser, I'm not having to work as hard to take off my makeup because this does a really good job. I want to say that this is a very inexpensive product as well, so I definitely would recommend this. I do plan to repurchase another one. I think it's such a good product and I'm really glad I've tested it out. So this is definitely a win in my book. So I have two face masks that I wanted to talk about. One is drugstore and one is high end. So the first one that's drugstore is by NUGG. It says cute but serious, and it's their youth boosting antioxidant gel mask. There's not very many masks from the drugstore that I would honestly say that I really do like or I would repurchase over and over again. I mean, maybe less than a handful of them, but this is actually one that I would repurchase. And I actually have a set of these sitting in my cart for Amazon because I think you can get like a bulk set on Amazon for very inexpensive. And I think if you wanted to purchase these are like $3.99 a piece, but I really do like them. The other one that I haven't tried yet that they have is the Deep Clean Cleansing Gel, which is one that I have in my closet right now to test out as well. So really excited about these. I could definitely say that I would repurchase this. And then the next one I wanted to talk about was the GLAMGLOW GLOWLACE Radiance Boost Sheet. So I tried a few of these out. I tried the ones that for all of your face and then the ones that just kind of like more of an eye mask. This one kind of essentially did the exact same thing as the one that I showed you from the drugstore, except I felt the one by NUGG actually made my skin a little bit more plump. It actually gave me a little bit more hydration than this one. So this one's cute and all, but I definitely would say that if you are needing hydration, I don't necessarily think you have to spend that much money in order to get it from a sheet mask. But if you are at like a Sephora or something, this isn't a bad one. It's just not personally my favorite. And then the last one I have is by Sunday Riley, and this is the CEO Vitamin C Rich Hydration Cream. I was really nervous to test it out because it is such a thick cream, and I get nervous with thick creams because I tend to find that they break me out. They're just too heavy for my skin, and it ends up having, like, I end up having the reverse reaction with stuff. So I typically like to go something more lightweight, but I decided that I would try this out at night before I went to bed. I actually would put just a little bit on my skin and mix it with another moisturizer, and then I kind of built my way into it. And then when my skin started to need more hydration, I found that it really sucked this in and it did a really good job. Since I started using the product, I could definitely see that my skin is slowly starting to build that radiance. I'm slowly starting to see, like, my nose had a couple spots and stuff that just were a little bit darker in certain areas, and I feel like they lighten. I feel like my forehead has gotten a little bit lighter, like not lighter, but brighter, I guess I should say. Just overall subtle changes, but in the morning when I wake up, I definitely feel like my skin looks a lot healthier. So I would definitely say that I really do like the product. I've been enjoying it so far, and I do plan on continuing to use it throughout the winter months, and then maybe come spring and summer, I'll definitely dial it back. But let's talk about eyeshadow palettes. The first one I wanted to talk about, which is one of the newer ones that I purchased, is the Kathleen Lights So Jaded palette. And this is actually one that I just spoke about here in like my fall favorite palette. So I did talk a lot more about it in that video. So if you guys haven't seen it, I'll have it linked somewhere here at the end of this video. I've created quite a few looks using this palette. It's actually what I'm wearing on my lid today. I actually have like a majority of the orange and brown tone shades in here, and then right in the center I have this aquamarine right in the center, and I do like the palette. I used aquamarine just using my finger and applied it, and I really like the way that it turned out because I feel like it didn't need any extra help. It really stuck to the concealer that was right in the center and did a really good job at giving me that more foiled look that I was looking for. I think the only thing that this palette lacks for me personally is depth and just getting really deep colors. because the only ones that I ever do for like my lower lash line are Sapphire, Jasper, and Stone. And I'm somebody that likes a really like defined lower lash line, like right up against the base. And that's the only thing it lacks for me. But otherwise than that, as far as it being like very consistent with jewel tones, I think it's a beautiful color. The next palette I wanted to talk about was the Dose of Colors Blushing Berries palette. This was also another palette I talked about in my fall favorite palettes. But you guys, this one here is one of my favorite palettes. Like, I cannot stop putting this palette down. This is actually what I use in conjunction with like the So Jaded palette when I need just a little bit more depth. I actually dive into this palette, but I love the matte colors that I create in this palette. I love the way it looks on my eyes. I love that it gives me just enough like fall vibe with it not being too warm or anything like that. Even though there's only 5 shadows, which when I first saw this, I was like, I have other palettes that only have 5 shadows and I hardly ever dive into them because I like a lot of variation. But with this palette, I cannot put it down. I love the way that it looks on my eyes. I love the formula of these Dose of Color palettes, and it's just overall a really great palette. So the next palette I wanted to talk about was the Dragun Beauty Face Palette, and it was so funny when I was like reading the comments and then going on Twitter and reading on Instagram. I feel like the comments were so either people really enjoyed it, it looked really good on them, or they didn't want it at all. For me, my favorite part of this palette has to be this Femme shade. I feel like this is like the perfect bronzer slash like color to my skin that I need. But I would say that after using it as much as I wouldn't spend $45 on this because for me, I only use one pan out of the palette. And I think if I was to use more out of the palette, then I would definitely say it's worth the $45. I do like the shade in there. I'm not necessarily a fan of the whole palette itself, but I definitely would say that if she was to pick out those shades and put them individually, I would be somebody to go and purchase that shade by itself. So I do have one concealer miss, which is the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer. With this one, I felt like the coverage was okay. I definitely don't think it's full coverage. I would say maybe medium coverage at its best. But my biggest issue with this was that it just doesn't stay underneath my eyes. It doesn't hold up underneath my eyes. It cakes up pretty quickly wherever I highlight. No matter what powders I use, whether it's a pressed powder or a loose powder, even if I use my favorite loose powder, it still breaks up. And it also find that it tends to oxidize just a little bit. So I feel like when it does oxidize, it tends to accentuate the darker spots I have just a little bit more and it emphasizes it. So for me, this was just a product that I wouldn't pick up. I would honestly say that there are other brand options out there to try, or if you are wanting to try a concealer from Maybelline, I would definitely still stick with the Maybelline Fit Me because even though it's a little bit more lightweight than this one, I still do think that the Maybelline Fit Me is buildable and it does a little bit better in coverage. Another miss I had is the Pure 4-in-1 Correcting Primer. I'm a little bit confused on how you use this primer because it is a 4-in-1 correcting primer and it says that it's supposed to instantly blur the look of imperfections and enlarged pores. I was like, okay, so I thought it was a primer that you put on before your foundation. So I used it that way and it didn't do anything. Like it didn't like minimize my pores. I felt like it was just one of those products that I just put on my face and I was like, okay, like a stagnant product. It's just there. So then I thought, well, maybe it's not intended that way. Maybe it's intended to use as my skincare. So I used it in the morning and then once at night. I just felt like instead of going in with this primer, I could just go in with like a salicylic treatment before I use my skincare. And then I could just use a blurring primer before I use my foundation. So I don't know. I just wasn't really sold on this product at all. My last product I want to talk about is a foundation, which is the Revolution Conceal and Hydrate Radiance Foundation with Hyaluronic Acid. And this one is a medium to full coverage, and the shade that I use is 8.5. I did do a foundation test with this, or like a first impressions. I used it with this and then their matching concealer. And I do like the concealer. The concealer is great, but this one in particular, I was actually really impressed by because it's a hydrate concealer. So for me, I felt like it was going to give me more of like a luminous finish, and it does if you use it by yourself. So if you're oily skin, I would highly recommend that if you're going to use this one, you use it as a mixer. And I would say as a mixer, it works really well. It gives me that a little bit of luminosity that I'm looking for in a foundation with the matte coverage that I need from another foundation, and I feel like it just peeks through just a little bit so my skin looks a little bit more healthier. And I also do like it because I feel like it does a really good job at playing around with other foundations. Like it's not a testy foundation. I also have worn this by itself, like if I'm just running out of the house really quickly. It does a really good job at just looking a little bit more put together and your skin looks a little bit more luminous. So I am also really excited that they went in with a pump on this, because the last one that they had, which is their matte one, that one was like a stick one, which I totally hated. I thought it was horrible. It made my skin look so cracky and nasty. But this one here, it's definitely a winner. So I would definitely say that this is one to try out. So those there are my favorites for this month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video with me. Let me know down below what some of your favorites are for this month. What's something that you guys have been going to nonstop. If you guys are new to my channel, thank you for watching. I do appreciate you guys spending a little bit of time with me today. And if you guys are new, please make sure to hit that subscribe button before you head out. I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye.